It's late afternoon in Sydney. It's not late afternoon in Perth. I am Sophie Green, and you
I'm
are.
Rachael Johns. And I was going to say, it does feel like late afternoon for me. I don't know why, but it does.
Well, maybe because you've had quite a trying day/week. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, true. So I've had a good week and a bad week. So the let's go with the bad first. Yeah, I didn't get much sleep last night or the night before. And I've been up since like 5:30 when I tried to roll over because I have Sophie, how do I say it? Because you don't like me saying I have a bad back. I have a back
Don't have a bad back. It's your back, which means it's a lovely back.
but it's a back that is struggles sometimes because I put a lot of pressure on it, sitting, you know, day after day at the computer writing. And even though I try and, get up and move about and all the things you're supposed to do. And I had a back operation quite a few years ago, but it's been getting a bit bad again. And I woke up, well, the last few days it's been quite bad, but this morning I could barely move. Every time I moved, it was so painful that it was like, I can't do this, I can't do this. So luckily I have a very good friend who is also a writer, Tess Woods. Many of people have heard of her, who's also a physio. And I texted her very early in the morning and said, help me. And she said, come and see me. So I've been to Tess this morning, and I have had acupuncture and all manner of wonderful things. And I'm actually now feeling a lot better. The pain is nowhere near as bad as it was, and I can move, which is nice. But I have done no work today, and I'm trying not to stress about that. But I'll say it's also been a really good week because I have had the WA Authors Christmas bookshop and authors Christmas party. I don't know if you
Oh,
guys do anything like that in New South
not a
Wales.
no.
I think it's the first time this has actually happened here, but both at Street Books, which is a lovely independent bookshop in a suburb called Mount Lawley, sort of heading, not exactly in a city, but very close. Maybe it is called in a city. Anyway, they hosted a book Christmas party in the beautiful new shop for the books, booksellers and other bookshops, the publishing reps from WA and authors, and that was on Tuesday night. And it was lovely. And then I had dinner after that with Dervla McTiernan and Natasha Lester, Anthea Hodgson, Sarah Foster, and Sasha Wasley. So that was lovely, but also sitting for a few hours after a day of sitting. And then the next day, I had a dinner with all these pretty much all the same booksellers, but just me and them, and
Right.
the Penguin rep as we sort of handed out arcs of The Bad Bridesmaid. So again, I sat for a few hours. So yeah, my back is feeling that it's done enough lately.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard to write with the pain.
Yeah, and because pain is a real distraction, actually.
Yes.
And I think when you have back pain, it feels like your very foundations are not secure. So
That's a good way of putting it.
it
Yeah.
can be quite destabilizing, literally and figuratively. Should also point out for those of you who are watching us, Rachel has not taken to sleeping in her office.
No,
She, the bed is
that
new.
bed is not supposed to be here, and it was only supposed to be here at night. So my husband's best childhood friend, actually, who's still good friends with, he missed an aeroplane the other day for FIFO, and he lives down south.
Oh,
And so Craig's like, "Can we put a bed in your office? Because it's the quietest room rather than our like lounge room is.
mm.
Anyway, it was supposed to be only there at night and it's still there. And I told my husband this morning, you need to take it out before I have book club on Sunday, but I forgot about the podcast. But I also said you need to take it out because when I see the bed there, I'm like, oh, a nap would be nice.
I'm
Um,
surprised Addie's not on it.
oh, she has been, but my husband's on day off, so she's out annoying him. But
Right.
yeah, she has been on it, her and the cat yesterday. So they're having a nice nap while I'm trying to be productive. But I have not had a very productive week. How about you?
On the writing front, I'm still waiting for my structural report, but I have had a very nice week on my country music side of life. So
Oh, yes. Do
those
tell us all about that.
those who don't know, I am a country music journalist as a hobby, so I don't earn any income from this, and
A
have
pretty busy,
never done.
full-on hobby, though, isn't it?
It is a busy hobby. These days, I'm mostly interviewing. I used to do more writing, but I think as my novel writing has increased, I've naturally. Well, actually, no, that's not true.
I was going
Now
to
I
say,
think
you
about
seem
it.
to do a lot.
It's because I do the interviews is why the writing has gone away because it's the interviews take a lot of
Yeah.
the post. And I do write the posts that go along with those interviews. It's just that I'm not writing reviews because that's a different form of writing.
Yeah.
But I was contacted a few weeks ago by someone who was on the board of the Country Music Association of Australia because they have relaunched these Achiever Awards. I actually hadn't heard of these awards before. I don't think they've been handed out for years. And they're having a symposium in Sydney. Now, at the time you and I are speaking, it's tomorrow. And I bought a ticket to the symposium and the awards night because I thought, great, something in Sydney. It's weekend. Yeah. And then I received this email saying, we're delighted to inform you that we're giving you the Media Achiever Award.
That is so exciting.
And they said, oh, we could offer flights and accommodation and 2 tickets. And I just said, well, I live in Sydney, so I don't need flights or accommodation, and I already have a ticket.
Oh, that's so funny. Did you, is anyone going with you to celebrate?
Yes, a friend of mine's going. So my original gig buddy is coming with me. So we have gone to gigs together for years. And so
oh no, that's good. Well, that's super exciting. So have you got, what are you wearing and stuff?
Well, I have to think about it because the symposium goes for a few hours and then there's about an hour's lag, and I'm not going to attempt to get home for that. So I just think I need to take something that is not going to crush, basically.
Yeah.
So I need to be able to pull a dress out of my bag that is not and then crush.
Well, you have loads of lovely clothes, so I'm sure you'll come up with something fabulous.
Thank you. I certainly hope that I do. But one never knows. No, I will think about it just before I head out the door. It's a nice logistical problem to have. There is a red carpet and presumably photos with it.
Oh,
so I need to
share some on your socials then. And do you get what's the award? Do you know, in terms
I have no idea. But I was asked to put together the playlist that will run the awards.
Oh, that's so cool.
In lieu of them getting a DJ. So I got that email a couple of days ago saying, would you mind putting that together? I thought, I love the idea of being
that's so awesome. Oh, that's great.
So I guess I do have an overview of what's happening.
Yeah.
Music releases and so that makes sense that I'm the person they would talk to. So, but enough about me and enough about you too, Rachael J, because we have Rachael T coming back, Rachael Treasure, because we loved talking to her so much last time and there were things that we didn't get to speak about. And as it's turned out, since we published that episode, she's put something on social media that you and I would both like to talk to her about.
Yes.
We thought we'd get her back as a pre-Christmas situation to have a chit.
I can't wait. Yeah, I can't believe we're getting so close to Christmas now.
No. So anyway, I'm going to put us on hold because she has arrived. Awesome. And I'll let her in and then we'll reconvene.
Thank you.
So we have the fabulous, amazing, wonderful, inspiring, glorious Rachael Treasure here to talk to us again. I'm so happy to be speaking to you. Hello.
Hello, Soph.
Hi. And Rachael J is saying hello as well. It's not just me. But I did duck out in between pausing the recording and coming back in to change into a reindeer T-shirt because
I love that T-shirt.
Rachael T, you appeared Christmassy and wonderful, and so then that kind of forced a change. And Rachael J, what have you got?
When I saw Rachael T's reindeer ears, I looked around my office to see what I could find, and I saw this dog Christmas outfit that I bought for Addie. So I'm improvising.
Yeah, very becoming.
If you want to see my socials in a few weeks, I'm sure you'll see Addie wearing her Christmas tree.
Yeah, it's really cute.
So Rachael T, you're very well organized. You've even got a little Christmas tree thing in the background. And
that's a little singing Santa hat that drives you nuts. So I'm not going to press play on it.
Yeah. I need to ask, are you already the rest of your house? Have you got Christmas stuff up yet? Or
oh no, it's just because when we were doing a part deux, part two, or not part deux, but part deux. I think we said, it'll be around Christmas time.
Yeah, definitely.
And then
I just wondered.
We all forgot. Yeah.
No, you remembered. I
just wondered though, if you have got your Christmas decorations.
No.
I was listening the other day to depending on when you put your Christmas decorations up, it's really, they were saying things about your personality for it. But so, just Sophie, do you have any Christmas decorations up?
Not yet. I have thought about them and just have to retrieve them and mine are pretty modest. There's like a little tree and everything and little ornaments, but I do like it. I'm getting in the spirit. I've actually ordered some Christmassy candles from a company called House because you could pre-order them. It's like a gingerbread man and something else. And I thought I actually do. I feel for some reason I really feel the need to create more Christmas spirit this year. I've already embarked on the Christmas movie watching on Netflix.
Oh, I was wondering, I mean, I know we're going off topic already, but yeah, do you read Christmas books? I've got a few that I'm going to determine to try and read this year because I've bought them in previous years. They were in a pile here, but I think I've tidied up this silly bed. So yeah.
I don't tend to read the Christmas book. Rachael T, do you read the Christmas book?
No, not so much, but I just have finished a Christmas manuscript for kids and it's based on cricket.
That's right.
As well, because cricket and Christmas go hand in hand. I've just been watching the West Australian Test. Western Australia looks.
And I know you love the cricket. You've talked about it in your memoir, Down the Dirt Roads. Yes.
I didn't know. I knew you were writing the kids' book, but I didn't know it was Christmassy as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Christmas and cricket. What a great Australian story to tell.
And with ponies in it as well. So
what more could you want?
So does this have a publication date?
No, it's just gone to my agent and it's on ice because as we know in publishing, people go, they're like hibernating bears over Christmas.
Yeah.
The publishers, after they've done their Christmas books, they have to go and recover. So we'll wait till next year, I think, before we show anyone.
Now, you did introduce the subject of ponies, and I think you might have a pony kind of story to tell us. Please do.
Well, I was a bit under pressure to get to the podcast on time because finding a horse vet is very difficult in Tasmania. So when the horse vet said he could come, we have a former cart horse. He was a Salamanca tourist horse, but he decided to rip half his bottom cheek off on a fencing steel post a few weeks ago. I know, right? And
I'm feeling pain for him. Although maybe it's just my back.
Anyway, he healed miraculously. However, there is swelling in his manly bits, and he was not whittling very well. So I've just been literally come straight from the horse yard this is James Herriot in full 3D color plus smell. The poor horse, I'm going to speak in animal terms, very blunt, ladies.
Can you try not to make me laugh because I've got a sore back and it hurts.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, the vet could have helped you because he gave him a sedative plus pain relief. Anyway, so he's had an anal probe, a rectal probe with the long glove, like you see in James Herriot. Yeah. And then he had to have a willy inspection for bladder things. And then he had a tube up his nose. And this is the beauty of animals. Like if that had happened to me, I'd be on the couch going, bring me grapes or massage my feet. We just let him out of the yard just in time for our podcast. And he's sort of going, oh, that was odd. And he's eating and walking and he's still whittling a bit weirdly, but I'm just glad there weren't any blokes around to see it because their eyes would have crossed. Anyway,
they would have been.
This is the genius of my life because if I want to write a vet scene where there's a horse with willy problems, I now have first-hand experience.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. When we're reading something in a Rachael Treasure book, it's usually, I think, that you've had first-hand experience, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We know. Well, we know that not everything, I suppose, but I mean, like, we know that if it is that farming environmental stuff that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's one.
And I do like you say that the bloke's eyes would cross if they saw what was happening to the male horse. This is coming from a woman who's given birth to 2 children. So everything your body has done.
Yeah, but not sorry to any male listeners, but I feel like they do not quite as good at dealing with pain as we are.
No.
Well, and I think that's well established, but still I just to acknowledge that work that the female body does bearing children and then giving birth perhaps is not as appreciated as it used to be, actually. I think with the fact that it seems on the outside to look relatively easy, if you know what I mean. Go to hospital, do this, do that, the other, that sort of ritual around birth we appear to have lost a little bit, but that's really by way of leading into a conversation about a post, Rachael T, that you put on Facebook,
Yeah.
and which is to do with I think honouring women and their contribution. So that was my kind of rough, lazy segue, and people can take issue with me using it if they wish.
No, it was a good one.
But I would like to actually read out this post, if that's okay with you, or some of it, just to give our listeners / viewers some context. And it was a post in which you have a book called Artists at Home by Karina Diaz-Pires, and you have posted a picture of it. And then you said, I'm reading this book, savoring it actually. Each day I ingest a page or two. It helps me digest the fact my creative life is buried by domestic life, the expectations surrounding motherhood, and my active regenerative farming life that is a daily struggle against big system ag. While the book industry is on fire for Tim Winton's new release about our current ecological crisis, deservedly so, and my fellow Tasmanian writer Richard Flanagan is held in high regard for his activism in forestry and fish farming, deservedly so, my work has been dubbed as rural romance, and so my passion for changing farming practice and food systems is not on the national big badass author radar. All my years and years and years of female empowerment through story and farming change advocacy via fiction, and hours of research and thousands of kilometres of ink that pours straight from my heart to the page feels like it is overlooked because I have ovaries instead of balls. Some days it feels like I'm a sideline female writer in the mainstream world, and it's getting worse as more minority groups claim centre stage, and real raw women, particularly mothers, are dismissed and overlooked. So today I thank all those women and the brotherhood of kind men who have read my words, understood the imperatives that I have laid down in my prose for the masculine of this world to embrace the feminine. Without that balance, we're all rooted. Today, I claim my space to be a national writer of significance, and I claim you as my loyal readers to be part of these seeds of change. Let's water them so they grow. I, Rachael Treasure, would like to second that and say you are a writer of national significance for many reasons, one of which is that you're brilliant at prose, for one thing, but also because you write stories that I think embody the big themes, but go for them. You know, you have not resiled from going for really big things, whether it's to do with interpersonal relationships or farming practices. And in Milking Time, I think a lot of that came together. But you know, throughout your writing career, I think you've gone for the guts of life. And that's a big, courageous, artistic decision. So that's a statement, not a question. Rachael Johns, do you have anything to add?
Just that I was nodding my head so hard when I read your post, and being really disappointed to read it as well, because it's so true. And it, and I was just trying to wrap my head around then when in the end part where you say, you know, thank you. You said something about the readers at the end, and I was just thinking, you know, it's not just insulting to the women writers who are, you know, just not dismissed exactly, but ignored, sort of overlooked. I think that's the word you said. And, you know, there's probably others too, you know, who've written about other aspects of, you know, I just think even, I'm not to take away from the environmental kind of stuff here, and no shade on Graham Simpson, but, you know, he wrote the Rosie Project a few years ago, which in essence is, I don't know if either of you two have read it. It's in essence, it's a romance novel. It's, you know, it's got a little bit of STEM stuff in there in terms of it's about, you know, a woman looking for her family, and she's, you know, she's an autistic woman, if I remember rightly, but plenty of women have written romances about the same topics and deep, yet the way, I mean, it was a great book, but the way it was treated was so different to women writing the same topics. But what I was actually going to say there is that it's insulting to the readers as well, not just the writers.
Yeah. So Rachael T, at that moment in time, was it reading that book that prompted you to write that post, or was this just like, or it was really just a catalyst that a whole lot of stuff had been building?
I mean, it's a brilliant book about how difficult it is to be a visual artist and a mother, and, you know, just have that creative life where you're there's so much expectation on us. So it had been a bit of a build up, but I think I've got to take these antlers off because, you know,
take the antlers off, because I was starting to get itchy around my neck with this dog collar.
Yeah, well, I think this was fitted for the dog. It's so small, and
you get a headache if you leave it on.
And my ego is getting so huge it just doesn't fit, hanging around the
Look, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Love yourself sick, Rachael T. Let that
Yeah.
ego balloon in your head with it.
Yeah, like huge head. My Santa hat won't fit now. But it was one of those things where you open up everything, and I have such respect for Tim Winton. But he's
that's what same with Graham Simpson and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
the writers that you mentioned, and that it's
So-
not that you don't think they're good and are doing good work, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So I've not read Tim Winton's Juice, but it's everywhere in the national press,
Mhm.
and it's about an apocalyptic Australia that has been ruined environmentally, whereas Milking Time is about the potential and the possibility of really significant community grassroots change, which is change that I live by every single day when I walk into the paddocks, handle the animals how I handle them, and sell really, really good quality ethical produce to customers. So I felt this sort of frustration rise, and added to that, we've got a fantastic, amazing festival that Matthew Evans, the former chef and food critic and now farmer, has organised. But because Matthew has such a visual impact on television and press, this regenerative festival is getting so much airplay, and it's in a space that I've worked in for nearly 2 decades now. Yeah. And fortunately, I mean, really fortunately, Helen Redbanks is, I don't know if you have read The Shepherd's Life by James Redbanks. He's an amazing English writer. It's the most beautiful book. His wife has written a book called The Farmer's Wife. And if you remember, I have written a book called The Farmer's Wife, which was about my frustration. It was so autobiographical that it's almost terrifying, where I've been trying to implement regenerative farming practices on my family farm to the point where I was ostracized from that farm and that family, which we dealt with in the previous thing. But Helen and I are now on doing an in conversation, and our brief was, there's so much heavy stuff going on at the festival. We want, you two can talk about your books and we'll keep it light. Oh. And I've gone, and that's fine. That's fine. But the blokes just don't get it. The
blokes get to have the serious conversations.
Yeah.
While you two just make sure everyone's feeling okay.
Yeah, like, because the farmers,
that's a woman's role.
Yeah, exactly.
To make sure everyone's fine.
Yeah, and I've dived into Helen's book, and it's beautiful, and it also made me cry because she talks about just having no time for self, and you've got to look after the potty lamb, the children, the dinner, the list goes on and on and on, and that's true. That's true to most women, but also in a farming situation, it's just tripled. So it's so it'll be really fantastic to I don't know, I'm hoping I can get Helen to really fire up at this at this event.
What's this festival? Are we allowed to know where?
Oh yeah, it's so exciting for Tassie. It's called Grounded Australia. It's a 2-day festival on the 4th and 5th of December. And it's the foodies who are wanting change in farm systems are getting together with us farmers. So there's my regen colleagues from all over Australia headed down to Tassie for 2 days. And to be put on the same stage as an international author, that is super exciting. So I'm sure Helen and I will really make it clear that it's, being a farmer's wife is actually the engine room of everything. So, yeah.
But it's also interesting, like you said, to be on the same stage as an international writer. Why shouldn't you be? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why you're one of the best-selling authors in Australian publishing history, Rachael Treasure, and Rachael T too, but you should absolutely be there. And and frankly, you two talking to each other would be of far more interest to me anyway. Blokes talking about manly men doing manly things.
I agree.
Whatever they're talking about, but
Sorry, I had to let the dog in, and then I think it froze for a second, so I'm just catching up.
Well, we were talking about Rachael and Helen talking at this festival that's coming up, and keeping it light. So it's like, well, okay, cigarettes and cognac in the sitting room for the men, and the ladies can go to the parlour.
Yeah.
It's
common.
really like, I actually don't, sometimes I don't even know what to say about these sort of things, because it still sort of blows my mind that we are still right there. And
Yeah.
that women's literature is, well, I guess there's some that's taken seriously, but for a woman to be taken seriously in her literature, it really has to, like, I think it has to be another level again, like for men, if that makes sense. I can't even explain what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
But
it is. It's definitely. Sorry, Rachel T, you go.
Oh no, I was just about to say, I think you have to have manly recognised academic qualifications.
yes, that's, see, you say it much better than me. Yes.
Yeah, so you need a PhD, and I don't even have I don't have a PhD. For me, a PhD is a post hole digger. I'm such a farmer. And I
would say you do have a PhD, because I've heard that a PhD is perseverance, humility, and discipline.
There you go. We've all got PhDs. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about the PhD now, I know that more people these days, male and female, are getting PhDs than certainly I've been aware of in the past. But the freedom and ability to do further study has not always been available to women in particular, because usually it required you to have someone to support you to basically run your life. And this goes back to the fact, if we look at back at the farming life, the 40-hour work week, all were constructed essentially for men who had wives to run their lives for them, so that they were never actually meant to be doing the housework and the child rearing at the same time. And now we have women like you, Rachael T, who are doing it all, and something's got to give at some point.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true. But it's one of those things that you end up being called a man hater, or sounding a bit bitter, or which is it's absolutely not the thing, but it's just it is frustrating, because I'm overlooked on the agricultural sector often, because small scale farmer. And
you were overlooked, as you said, by your own family in the agricultural, because you're a woman.
Yeah. And then you step into the realm of the writing world, and you're an advocate for so much change. But I just think I didn't read the responses to that post, because I was a little bit, oh my God, I sound like a total tosser putting that up. No, I want to be a writer of nationality. No, but after listening into the podcast that we did, our first podcast, that you girls gave me the courage to go, no, hang on a minute.
Good.
I have actually achieved something here. And the responses to that post, people have said the books really have reached them on so many different levels. So
I was just looking at some of the comments, and you are a writer of national significance, and we are blessed to have you. I think I'm really glad that you did say something. I'm actually going to share your post later, because I remember reading it and just thinking, oh, that's really cool, but I think I was out and about. But it's something that I think needs to be said and shared around. So
and it was a common theme throughout the actual book that I was reading, the Artists at Home book. It was a common theme to every single female artist. And I know a lot of the male writers that are super successful, the majority have other people. They have their wives doing the admin on writing. They're doing the marketing on writing. So
I can think, and I definitely think about the men that I know who are successful writers, and many of them I think are great men and love their books and stuff, as we've said. But you look at it like, so even if they have kids, if they've got kids, they've got a wife, and they may be more hands-on than some dads, but still it's different sadly it still is different to if you're a woman writing and also being the primary carer.
Because we're all still existing within a patriarchal structure. And I think it's something this is certainly not about hating men, like Rachael T, as you said, the man hater phrase. It's not about hating men. It's about hating the structure that's been put around them in particular to benefit them. And a lot of the exhaustion and frustration women feel is because we're existing within a structure that simply is not there for us. And what we're trying to do, even by having this conversation, is basically dent those structures a little bit. It's like, just push it and make it a little bit unstable. But of course, when you make that structure unstable, the people who are relying on it get very upset. And because the prospect of pushing and denting a little bit is that it might eventually fall down, and
Yeah.
if we might be constructing something in its place that's not going to be visible for a very long time because we're essentially hiding it in plain sight. I think that's partly what's going on. I think that is also what goes on in our fiction, because if I look at Milking Time, for example, what you're doing is putting forward your practice and your theses and all that knowledge you've gained through a story of a woman's self-development and self-realization, and also her pursuing interpersonal relationships, whether they work or whether they do not, and people have to read the book to find out whether they do or they do not, and that's essentially hiding it in plain sight in a way, but it's also really deft storytelling, because you're not writing it like it's a thesis, you're not writing it like,
and that's probably half your problem, because then the easy fiction, like easy reading fiction, is looked down as being, oh, it's easy writing, you haven't really had to put your heart and your soul into it, you know what I mean?
Easy writing is the hardest thing in the world to
Yeah.
do. Both of you are really easy to read. That is the hardest thing to achieve.
And you, whereas if you'd written, I was wondering, I've got a question here for sort of both of you and just two. So do you think, like, obviously Rach has written her memoir and, you know, some non-fiction, but say Milking Time, like, is it because it's fiction that it's not, or is it because it's female fiction? If you know what I mean. Like, if Rachael had written a serious fiction book about all that.
You mean a literary novel? Like a literary.
Yeah. Well, sorry. Well, either that, no, probably not, because I think, to be honest, here's another tangent, but I think once you've written commercial fiction, it is a genre type fiction, it's very hard to break out of that. Like, you would probably have to write under a different name to be taken seriously as a literary fiction author, because I think people have these, like, say for me, I started writing rural romance, which I'm very proud about and happy, you know, to have written, but it's very hard then, people still see me as just a romance writer, which is nothing wrong with. So if I wrote a literary fiction book, I'm pretty sure, you know, it wouldn't be taken as a literary fiction book, you know. So anyway, I've gone off on a complete tangent. But what I'm saying is, do you think that Rachael, if she wrote a non-fiction book about this, would be taken more seriously?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, because you're a non-fiction publisher.
If she's written non-fiction, no, probably not as seriously as Tim Winton and Richard Flanagan are being taken.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can reach so many more people with an easy to read fiction.
So I should also say, being taken seriously, I don't mean by the publishing company, I mean by the media.
Yeah, it's media, isn't it? Media, prize givers, all that kind of stuff, you know, like, I mean, you know, yeah, it's the type of books that will win literary prizes as well.
It's a big slow ship to turn around.
Yeah.
This particular ship we're talking about.
One other thing, which is why next year the Romance Fund Australia has added a women's fiction category rather than just romance, because we've got the crime awards in Australia, we've got the literary awards, but like we don't really have awards for books like, say, Your Duchess, you know, at the hotel. Well, we do now, because Romance Fund is adding a women's fiction category. But I've got another question for you, Rachael. So that artists at home, I've got these two questions. One, would you recommend it to people who are not like graphic arts? Obviously, you know, like, do you think it's an interesting, obviously, you know, would you recommend it basically for us to read it?
Well, that's difficult to answer, but it's got the most beautiful photographs and it's a coffee table book, so it's just luscious to have around.
So you can like flick through it and read it at different times, and now my second question is kind of directly to both. So I'm looking at it online now, and you're right, I can see the beautiful pictures, and so this is 32 graphic or female like artists, is in art, not writing art or song art. Or why don't we do an authors at home one? Sophie, I'm pitching it to you.
Because then it would just be like a desk, or in my case, because I'm often, you know, standing up in the kitchen or sitting down on the floor, I don't know that the photos would be that great, because the thing about a visual artist is, of course, there's the visual
space is always beautiful. Yeah. All right. Well, it was just a thought. We've got plenty of work anyway.
I think that people are always fascinated by writers' spaces, and it would shatter that myth, wouldn't it, Sophie? Because I'm the same. I'll write in the ute or
Yeah.
on the couch, and half the time.
Yeah, the different places where writers write.
Yeah, but so my beautiful cousin gave me a book, and it's something along the lines of amazing, one of great authors and the clothes they wore, and so
wow.
and it's all sort of the old classic writers of the time of the, in they're looking fabulously chic. And I'm thinking, well, that would work. That would work for us. You wearing your dog coat, and I'm wearing the reindeer ears.
Yeah.
So
I've just seen there's also a book called The Writer's Garden, How Garden Inspired the World's Great Authors. So I'm not giving up on this pitch to Sophie about the writers.
I am going to use this topic to segue to talk about something else Rachael T does, which is writing. She's written some country music songs with the Wolf Brothers, and because what we're talking about in relation to female artists, writers, not being taken as seriously, we could shift across to music, and because I am a country music journalist, I can see that within Australian country music, it's a pretty even split of male and female artists in terms of who is out there and who the audience actually responds to, because I've been to the Tamworth Country Music Festival a number of times. I can see the audience responses. When it comes to those awards, which are voted on by industry, the men take out the album categories all the time. So in the nominations for like best alt country album of the year, traditional country album of the year, and then album of the year and contemporary country, usually the majority of the nominees will be men, and then it will be a bloke who takes out album of the year. Now there's the exception that can prove the rule, but every single year I just think this genre of all the music I've ever followed is the one that seems to have the most equality between male and female artists, and from the audience point of view as well, what they're interested in and what they will go to, what they will go and see live. And that is not reflected in the awards.
Wow.
That's to do with the voting body, which is largely blokes in radio, actually. So when I come back to who the media takes seriously, we're talking about it with country music. And if I also parlay it to my other grand passion, tennis, the week we're speaking we've had the Billie Jean King Cup, which is like the Women's World Cup of tennis, overlapping with the start of the Davis Cup, which is the Men's World Cup of tennis. Now it's on the same place. They're both in Malaga in Spain. The Billie Jean King Cup was meant to be in Seville. They moved it to Malaga. They're playing in the car park. They put up a temporary arena in the car park. The men are in the stadium that was purpose-built for the Davis Cup in Malaga. And the reason given for why the women weren't in that stadium is, it's overlapping ending of the Billie Jean King Cup with the start of the Davis Cup. The retirement of Rafael Nadal has been part of that. But like literally they're in the car park. So they're in this very small area. And the tennis, as the podcast I love to listen to, the tennis podcast, said, it's not like the product is bad. The product is brilliant, and the product is brilliant. And what's interesting to me as a tennis obsessive is that I know watching all the sorts of tennis, women's tennis is actually a lot more interesting in terms of story and accessibility to newcomers, because it moves a little more slowly, so you can see what's going on better. You can see the strategy. You get great personalities in women's tennis, and also it moves around a lot in terms of who's on top. So you actually don't have this domination by players for years. And even Iga Swiatek, who's been quite dominant on clay, she can't do the same on hard courts and grass. So you have this interesting movement at the top of it. So you have your favorite, and maybe your favorite's going to do well, or maybe they won't. And it's all like this, it just keeps you on your edge. That is not covered the way the blokes tennis is.
Wow, so interesting.
It's to my eternal frustration. And I'm talking about it because one of the ways to make people aware of this is to just say women's tennis is awesome. And I'm doing it on this podcast. So there you go. That's my little spiel. I'm going to hand it over to one of the Rachels.
But I mean, I agree. The Archibald, in the book we were talking about with art, they reference the Archibald, and it's gone to men so many times. It took years for a woman to win the Archibald Portrait Prize. And also I find with women's cricket, when they're mic'd up on the field, the women are just so much more entertaining. You see the development of young players coming through. There's kids they're playing that are 15, like young women that are, they're they're doing year 11 and 12 as well. But they're relegated to the kind of the backwaters of the cricket pitches and things. Like I know when I was playing my cricket, we weren't allowed to play on the turf pitches because they were reserved for the men and they cost a lot to hire. And we played on concrete pitches and we were given the ball. This sounds gross. I'll word it so it makes everyone giggle. We were given the used men's balls from the previous week.
Oh.
Yeah, so so the tennis is, that is high theatre. But I think Federer said something along the lines of, well, women supermodels get paid more because they bring more in terms of sponsorship. So therefore, that should play out for tennis players, male and female. The men seem to generate more revenue. And I just, yeah.
Well, the chicken and egg there is because men play best of 5 at slams, there is more content. And it was Billie Jean King who pointed that out. There's just simply more content. There are more hours of video. And I always say that the men get to have the redemption arc. If we want to talk about storytelling within sport, best of 5 sets, you can lose the first 2 and still win the match by winning the next 3. And that's a massive redemption arc. And you've been on court for hours and the audience is attached to you, whether they're there in person or they're on TV. They get to form this emotional attachment to your redemption arc. Women do not have that advantage. It's best of 3. If you lose the first 2 sets, that match is over. They don't get to have their redemption arc. So they don't get those big storylines that the men have been having. Now, there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, the women don't want to pay best of 5. They do. And they do in slams. But in order to give them best of 5 in slams, those tournaments would need to be 3 weeks long. And no one is going to agree to that, because the timing would just push out. And so there's suggested solutions are that everyone plays best of 3 up to the quarterfinals, and then quarterfinals on, everyone's playing best of 5. As a tennis nut, I would love to see that. I would love to see the women doing best of 5. But that's anyway. But we've actually moved away from the reason why I pulled us to.
Can I just say two? Can I say 2 things quickly? So one, the supermodel thing. Women get more sponsorship when it's all about how they look. Is that what we're saying? Whereas men's what they actually are doing. And the other thing I'll say, do you actually think we're slightly ahead in the writing world in Australia then, in that we do have a specific prize for women's literature, the Stella, but it's not all women's literature again.
But it certainly does not reward romance novels, right?
I was going to say, I guess that it's, what was is it the Miles Franklin's the other one that everyone is that one?
It's the Miles Franklin for women,
and Barbara Jeffries as well.
I mean, we're not going to ever, the commercial sort of easy to read fiction is never going to and that does get me down a little bit, because I think one of the myths is, not that I care about not winning the Stella or not even being long listed ever for the Stella, but I think one of the myths about fiction that's easy to read, particularly romance, but even general contemporary fiction that we all write, it's exactly what is happening to Rachel. It's being overlooked, because if it's written and it's enjoyable and women read it and women write it and it's got fun themes and stuff as well as the deeper themes, then it can't be important. It seems that only books that are tragic or about deep, dark, horrible things can actually be looked up to as good writing and literature, whereas commercial genre fiction can explore and does just as deep and important things, but maybe in a way that doesn't leave you feeling like you want to throw yourself off a cliff.
Yeah, because both of you, if I look at both of you with your recent books, so if we look at The Other Bridget, Rachel, that is in part a book about the importance of books.
Yeah.
So it's about the importance of sharing stories with other people, how they can have an impact on someone's life, how they can improve the quality of life, how Bridget's life is changed through her involvement in being a librarian and her love of stories. Milking Time is about better farming practices. It's also about how to be a whole person in the world. It's about it's a quest narrative, essentially.
Yep.
We have a main character who goes on a quest to find herself and finds herself within herself ultimately, which is as it should be. These are, what bigger things would we like? You know what I mean? In storytelling, how big do we want these themes to be? These characters, though, are not hurt. And this is another interesting point to consider. None of your characters hurt other people. And I sometimes wonder whether what is valued is when we have main characters who prove themselves by causing destruction and then redeeming themselves. So if I go back to that redemption arc idea, they get
Yeah.
a redemption arc. I've been a bad boy and now I'm a good boy. And isn't that an amazing story?
And half the time those characters are rescued by the good women.
Yeah.
Those, yeah,
So
it's
true.
yeah. When you look at character arcs, it's
Mm.
or the man's fallen down to the depths of despair because he's lost his anchor of a good woman.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Great.
so
Yeah, that power. Yes, there's a lot of power in the feminine there too. And this would be a whole other tangent
Yeah.
we could embrace. But I'm going to bring it back to the songwriting, Rachael T, because this is
yes.
a form of storytelling that you've engaged in. So you've mentioned that children's book that you've just sent to your agent. Songwriting is not like writing a children's picture book, and it's not like writing a short story or a novella. It's quite a different discipline altogether. And I think
Is there anything you can't do, Rachel? You've written songs, non-fiction, children's books, fiction. You're making us all look slack.
Well, I'm doing a stand-up comedy course.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm learning how to write stand-up comedy.
Screenwriting. You just wrote something for SBS too.
Oh, that was years ago. Yeah,
so jealous of the stand-up comedy thing.
Oh,
anyway, go back to Sophie's question.
It's all about writing. I love this craft of storytelling. I just love storytelling. And that's why probably Sophie and I love country music so much, because it has the most powerful lyrics in it. And it is such quality storytelling in a 2 and a bit minute grab. And I sort of fell into it in the sense that I would go to somewhere like the Bushy Park show and I'd have my books there, and I'd be asked to judge the ute judging competitions. And so the Wolfie boys, that were when they were baby wolves, a little pack of them.
That is their real last name, I should say. They are really the Wolf brothers, yes.
The Wolf brothers, yeah, that's their surname. But they're just gorgeous Tassie as boys, and I really resonated with them. And so we'd go off and do the ute judging. And then when they were playing a set on the back of a semi-trailer at the show, they'd say, "Could you mind our merch?" And so we would dovetail in. And of course, Tassie's quite an isolated place, and if you're too big for your boots here, you can get a bit of tall poppy syndrome. So I'd been in the national game of publishing with tours and things for a good 10 years. So I kind of I sound a bit up myself mentoring them, but we gravitated together because they had a lot to learn, and so as did I. And so Nick Wolf, who's he's the lead singer, together with his brother Tom, Nick and I had a couple of sessions, so writing song lyrics. And so the ones that got recorded I just love. One was called Nothing to Do and All Day to Do It. And the
I
other
love that.
yeah, and as if I've ever got one of those sort of
Yeah.
days. And then the other one was High Vis Anthem, which is really playful. It's about going to work in your high vis and rather than a suit, and having a toolbox of Sid Chrome tools rather than a briefcase. So it's a celebration of that working lifestyle. So but writing songs with them was just something that I really, it was a phenomenal experience. But like you say, Rachel J, so different to anything else that I'd ever done. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure each type of writing that you do, I did an event a couple of weeks ago with a couple of authors, and one of them was Holden Shepherd, and he was talking about how he has just worked in, he's been in the writing room for his TV series, for his book Invisible Boys. And he said that being in the writing room for the TV series has changed how he started to write his next book, because he's, and so I think all the different types of, writing you learn, it's going to enhance the other parts of your writing. Surely.
Yeah, definitely. And the stand-up comedy, that was born out of, I was at a regenerative ag think tank. We've got a bunch of us that got together for a weekend, and we did a guided meditation, and in the visualization, I said, this is really weird. When we came back from our guided meditation, I said, this is really weird. I was a stand-up comedian in 5 years' time. And everyone in the room went, oh my God, yes, you're so funny, do it. Yeah. And there just so happened to be a woman there that said, there's a course called Sustainable Stand-Up, and it helps you get really, really difficult confronting issues like climate crisis and change across using humor. So it helps me temper temper my frustration and anger at this very patriarchal system that's killing everything. Yeah. And it's And so I've actually got a live gig in Melbourne as a
Let's go. When?
Next Saturday night.
Oh,
Yeah.
Damn it, we can't go.
Yeah,
I was like, Sophie, should we go?
But
next one.
But like
Yes.
like you say, Rachel, it's taught me how to write something really funny in a few pages. And so I see my next book, you know, potentially using those techniques in a non-fiction guise to get some really complex regen ag stuff that's pretty dry and boring, but using
in a funny way.
Yeah,
Do you know what's really hilarious? So years ago, Fiona Palmer and I went on a cruise, a comedy cruise, because I just, neither of us had ever been on a cruise because, and both of our partners were like, why would you want to go on a cruise? It's just like the worst idea ever. So we thought, well, we'll go by ourselves. But also it was a comedy cruise and there was a stand-up writing comedy workshop kind of there. And you could also have a go. And I stood up for about 2 minutes and tried to have a go. And it was mortifying, but really fun as well. So I'm very keen to hear how that goes. Yeah. And I wish I could come watch you. So the next time you do it, let us know in advance. I will fly and come and see you, and I'll drag Sophie along too.
Well, hopefully it'll be on YouTube or something, and it'll get I'll go viral or something.
Yes. And then everyone will buy your books as well.
Exactly.
You won't have to drag me, Rachel J. I will very happily go. I'm really pleased to hear this because Rachael T, you are hilarious. And when we were on the Gold Coast at Rachael J's Readers Retreat, whenever you were telling a story, whether you were on stage or just ended up talking to someone else, your sense of timing, I remember thinking, oh my God, this woman is hilarious. It was the first time we'd met. And also the timing and the choice of words and your ability to choose the words carefully, but without seeming like it's deliberate, if you know what I mean. It's like you're not taking a huge amount of time to think about it. There's just this thing's coming out with the timing of it. And I remember thinking she's a comedian. So there you go.
There you go. She is. She is. Looks like. Oh, no, if you do it again, let us know.
Oh, I will. It could be the start of a really big career. Like
I love it.
Celeste Barber might take me on, you know, as a
move over Celeste Barber because it's the news. It's going to be you.
Well, and look, this actually really fits nicely with another topic of discussion we had for today, which is about what we have planned for next year. So we have a question sent to Rachael by Nina Kenwood, and we did answer a question of Nina's a little while ago. So this was the part 2 of hers. We're having the Rachael and Sophie part 2, and now this is a part 2 as well. So I'm going to ask this question of both of you, and part of it's for me as well. So the question is about predictions and thoughts on where the book industry is going in 2025 and beyond, and thoughts on the state of romance / women's fiction in Australia. And Nina was quite keen on my thoughts from a publisher perspective. But
I was going to say, I think you've got the most to probably offer there.
But I think this is not unrelated to what we were talking about earlier on in terms of the state of romance and women's fiction. So what I find interesting, and it's kind of only formed now that we're talking at the moment, is the presumption that romance, with its new popularity over the past few years, thanks largely to TikTok, will somehow go away as a popular genre, I think is tied to the belief that it's not serious.
Which is so interesting, because it has been the most popular genre forever.
Yeah, but it's just not been taken seriously by a lot of booksellers, actually. It was very hard to
media, as you said.
And so I think that it is definitely going to stay popular, partly because of the very things we've been talking about with your writing, which is ease of reading. In times when our brains are crowded, when there's a lot of information that we don't necessarily want to have that is coming from outside sources, having a book that is really easy to slip into, which is thoughtful and thought-provoking as well, because readers don't necessarily want to not have that. That's the biggest treat, right? And so I do think that well done commercial women's fiction of the type that you both write will continue to be popular. And it's the challenge really that we have is that a lot of bookshop space is being given to the Northern Hemisphere writers, Book Talk, and it's shelf space, and it is bookseller budget as well. So that's the conundrum.
That's a challenge. Are there any thoughts about what we can actually do?
We're doing it right now on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I was thinking other podcasts like Claire Fletcher and Karina May do a really great rom-com podcast where they do focus on Australian fiction and getting the word out about Australian romance authors, because in particular, like, the romance is being taken over by the TikTok, as you said, in the bookshops and stuff. And a lot of our Australian rom-coms and stuff, you know, people would probably like, but they just don't have the chance to get to. So yeah, I guess just spread the word. Hey, word of mouth, keep talking. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it's also just, you know, in actually putting ourselves forward to do this podcast, the very fact we are sitting here, we are basically saying, take us seriously.
Yeah.
You know, we actually have something to say. Rachael T writing that post, you're essentially saying, you can take me seriously. I do know what I'm doing. I think that's part of it. It's like,
yeah.
In fact, sometimes when this happens semi-regularly, when someone will send me like a question about something, I will say, I do know what I'm doing. Just say it like that. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's that.
Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's interesting too, because HarperCollins have a wonderful author day where they get authors in and you have a Zoom, or you can go there and have all the nice little nibbles, which I always miss out because it's often in Sydney.
Yeah. I haven't gone for a few years for the same reason.
Yeah, but they were saying that audiobooks have gone up 42% since last year. So the quality of audiobooks is on the rise, and also people are wanting to stay in that long term. That people are getting used to listening to podcasts, and the chattier and the longer you can do, you commute or your housework while you're listening. So the other thing that they said, paper costs had gone up by 200%, and there's still the curly issue of carbon footprint. So what else that and like you said, Sophie, we're flooded with overseas titles. So the booksellers I talk to, they say a lot of the quality isn't there, but they're just flooded by it, and there's not enough curated titles that are put right in front of them. We don't have a rep in Tassie to hand sell into bookstores anymore
that's insane
for me. So, and also too, you've Kmart and Target merged, so there was bookshelves that just immediately overnight squished down, and those book buyers are passionate for those big corporations, but there's only so much shelf space,
and those book buyers are that's the cheap, like the you know, $10 books that are mostly you know, book talk, and it's not that there's anything wrong with them, and we're glad that people are reading and stuff, but there's only a certain amount of shelf space, isn't it? So if they're taking those books, they're not taking as many Australian authors as they were.
I should say that for anyone who's not aware, Tasmania has several great independent bookshops. So there's Launceston, there is Fuller's in Hobart, of course, very well known. There's State Cinema in Launceston, there's Hobart Bookshop. There's also Cracked and Spineless, which if no one's been to in Hobart,
and
is
just
not a conventional bookshop.
We've got brilliant independents down here, and they are so loyal to Australian writers, and particularly Tassie ones. So
in terms of what's happening, I actually think that that's interesting. I've been having conversations because this week, as I said before I came on, before you came on, Rachel, I went to the WA. It's the first bookshops and authors Christmas party. So and I have been having conversations with people this week about bookshops in WA and stuff, and there's two new indie bookshops being opened in the next few months. One is a young woman who used to work for Dimmick. She's fabulous. She's been doing events as long as I've been writing, and she's opening a bookshop in Leederville. And then the people who own Crow Books, Alan, he's a wonderful bookseller. Crow Books at Vic Park, and New Edition in Fremantle is actually opening a bookshop in the CBD. And they were the reps also there were saying that in Perth, particularly the independent bookshops are doing, you know, they're giving the chains a really big run for their money. So I wonder, you know, if we're going to see more of the, you know, really the independent bookstores, I think not sitting on their laurels and just going, oh, well, we can't fight, you know, Amazon and Kmart and Big W. They're doing other things. They're giving quality back to the community by, you know, running book clubs and events, and really, you know, they're putting themselves on TikTok and out there. They're doing a lot of good things, and so that's, I wonder if we're going to see some more indie bookshops happening. In terms of the future, do you guys have anything to say on that?
Oh, just to support your local bookstore, because I saw online you could buy my new release Milking Time for $7 from a major store. I'm not going to name which one it was, but $7. But you've got to go into an independent, and they have to charge
Yeah.
a
Yeah, I
higher
think that's
price. So
because they're not getting the books for the price that the department stores are getting.
department store, and people aren't aware of that. But I will always go and pay more money.
And we do understand that not everyone can, again, it's sort of,
Yeah.
But if you can, I feel like if you can go and support your independent bookshops at least some of the time,
Yeah.
and as I said, like, the good thing about independent bookshops is they have so much more than, say, the department stores, in terms of they have books that you might not find,
They can order them for you. That's the
they
other
can
thing.
order them for you.
Yeah.
And then they have backlist a lot of the time. Whereas, if you go into the department stores, they're just going to have the new releases, unless you're someone like, super, super famous. But even like Stephen King and Nora Roberts and stuff, they don't have all their backlist. Whereas, But I wonder, what's going to happen in the future. I think a big thing with publishers, authors at the moment is the whole issue of AI. And I've been having some chats with some Perth writers, about this, and I think one of one of them said that they're now putting in their dedication, or not the dedication, the acknowledgements, something about being human, and this is a human authored book. And although AI at this stage, the fiction that it writes is nowhere near, like, it's not great quality. But who knows how it's going to come, what's going to come. But I think the thing that people are really going to is just a really good quality book, and one that feels like it's, got the universal emotions that everyone sort of deals with. So it's going to have, it just, it's quality. I think we're going to see even more that, because there's so much not quality out there, and it's very easy for, I saw someone shared on their Facebook page with someone advertising, come write AI fiction books with me. I'm not an author, but I'm making, this many dollars a month and stuff because I'm putting these books out. And I feel like the market will be flooded with stuff that is really, really bad, which will mean that high quality stuff is sought out, and it's even more important, if that makes sense.
I'd say it's not even to do with quality so much as it's to do with the humans who are writing it. It's partly, again, what we're doing here now is like we're claiming our space as writers, and we're claiming those roles, and say, actually, we're here doing this. And at least, I think we're all interested in communicating with readers, and that's something that AI can't do. ChatGPT is not interested in communicating with a reader because it's not human.
And I think you're right. I do believe that people find that important.
But also, this is partly too with, I like to talk about with audio, in relation to audiobooks in particular, how the original storytelling was oral. So audiobooks are just a version of that. But that's also to acknowledge that the original storytellers essentially had to be extroverted in order to communicate with other people, or they had to be able to check that extroversion. And so I think the stereotype, and I do think it's partly a stereotype, or the idea that writers might develop, that they need to be introverted, they need to be in the attic away from everyone else and away from their reader. That's actually almost a Victorian construct, but not a Dickensian construct, because Charles Dickens,
it's sort of like the tortured author as well, isn't it? Like
And so I think that's another way to combat it, is that we need to be visible and relish the fact that we have these relationships with readers, because that's amazing. We've all had communication with readers, and isn't it great? Like, aren't they fantastic?
Also, imagine, like, how we get emails from readers and stuff. Imagine if the reader is just emailing an AI, and the AI just responds like, how's it? It's just, Anyway, I think Nina also wanted us to predict trends in terms of, I guess, what fiction might be like. We've seen in the last couple.
We could all have a crystal ball.
I know, this is why I'm funny. This is hilarious, because I'm thinking, romanticy's been a massive thing, right, in the last couple of years, thanks mostly to Rebecca Yarros and her dragons. We have seen, because of Book Talk, romance having a moment again. What else are we seeing? And Sophie, like, what is it? You're the person who's the insider information. The publisher.
Again, if publishers had crystal balls, well, here's the thing: if every publishing company knew what was going to work, they'd probably publish 5 books a year. If it was only about sure things,
that's so interesting.
Then that's all you'd focus on.
Yeah,
so we can never.
So basically, sorry, Nina, let's Rachel, are you a psychic? Do you know what?
Well, just going back to the HarperCollins Author Day, because of informative podcasts, so sciencey, they said there's a trending down for nonfiction. So so that's trending downwards.
Lucky Sophie has other job.
Trending down in print, in audio. That print in audio you mentioned. That certainly nonfiction audio is now for some titles outstripping ebook. Yeah.
So but I mean,
I think that's because everyone's so busy as well. Like, audiobook is great, right? I listen to them when I'm driving, when I'm exercising, podcasts too, when I'm cleaning, when I'm cooking. But it's like that thing. I think that's, in audio you can be doing other things. Wow. And we're so like into multitasking and, jamming as much as we can in our lives. I remember a couple of years ago, I went to Capricorn Coast Writers Festival, and Holly Ringland and I were on a panel. The psychiatrist interviewed us or whatever, and we were like, this is our therapy session. But, we talked on that about the importance of not, like I probably have very little downtime in that I'm not, as I said, if I'm cleaning or folding washing, I'm like, well, I don't want to fold washing. This is terrible. So what am I going to do? I'm going to listen to an audiobook. I'm going to listen to a podcast. There's very little time in my life. And if I do this, I have to really focus on it, where I'm not being productive in some way, like reading or listening. And I think so audiobooks, it's like we can achieve more if we listen in audio, I don't know.
Rachael T, are you an audiobook listener?
Yes, I very much am, because if I don't have an audiobook plugged in when I'm doing domestics, the narrative in my head gets to escalating anger. And I hear myself going, I'm an artist. Like,
why am I cleaning?
I'm a novelist. Like, where is my butler? Like, where,
Yes, I hear you. I was talking to a writer friend yesterday, and she said, I've just done my taxes. Why don't I have someone to do all my housework? Like, I should.
Well, Rachael T, you really should, because you're also farming. And
it's madness at times. But
I agree. It makes you stop being it helps the rage.
But you can, it does. But so I saw something recently, like, why put all this into AI and take away human creativity? Why not put AI into just achieving domestic feats? Like, what?
Yes. Let's have an AI cleaning the house and folding the washing. And we'll do the creative stuff.
Yes. So it's and I think there's going to be, talking about trending, I think there's going to be a backlash against technology. All that influx of emails.
I do hope so, actually.
Yeah, people are going to want to be back to reading books and being able to cuddle and hold books and kiss them and put them, on your shelf. And
I'm feeling that myself, and I'm someone who reads for work. But mind you, the amount of email that is overwhelming, just as you said, and it's increased in volume almost exponentially over the past few years. And I have found myself craving just time with a book at home. It's like,
that's why I think I prefer print. I do sometimes read them on Kindle at night because my husband gets up early and I like reading in bed, and so it's not to have the light and that on. But where I'm at the computer all day, every day, and I'm on my phone scrolling for mostly work stuff, like posting on socials and liking, your posts and all that kind of stuff, that I just want to escape with an actual real book, because I feel like then I am actually relaxing and not,
Well, we'll now move on to our personal predictions or personal wish list for 2025. So, Rachael T, you have your first stand-up gig. Now, obviously, we would all hope this is the first of many. Is that on your personal wish list, though?
Oh, definitely. I would love to do more stand-up comedy. So once I've perfected this set with our practice audience in Melbourne, because it's a kind of, the other participants of the course go in and they present their...
That's good. That's nice, isn't it? Because you're all going to be kind of supportive of each other rather than heckling each other.
And I figured I'd like to do something in Hobart. There's a laughter lounge or something, and I kind of get that I'll probably be the only 55-year-old woman that's standing in the room. Most people that
excellent. I love that.
So I'm gonna just show them what crone lady can do. And so that, and then on February the 1st, Rach J and I and Anthea Hodgson are going to see Liz Gilbert.
Yes.
So so we're doing that.
Sydney, that one. You're coming to Sydney for that?
Yes, Sydney. So that's something that's going to kick off my year. But typically my daughter, she's leaving her TAFE. So I've put all these plans in place. She's with the NDIS. So I put all the plans in place for 2025 for my daughter, but not for myself. So
Right.
I'm going to come away from this podcast and going, right, this is what I'm doing. I know we're having a natural sequence farming 4-day course, which I'm hosting at the farm, which is all about land restoration. So that's happening in wintertime. That's really good. But creatively, there's just so much I want to do. It's just so much. So
love it.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is very.
So I mean, so
you go next, though.
I'm just thinking, just to wrap up, Rachael T. So creatively, does that include novels or one novel, or is it just like a whole realm of things that are too nebulous to talk about?
A little bit nebulous, but I think we alluded to it last time. To dive into a novel, I don't feel my energy banks have been replenished enough after having treatment for breast cancer. So
yeah.
I want to do creative things that are shorter length, non-fiction, and hence the children's book, and then build up to another novel. And also, it's a wait and see what the industry is doing, because it's like we're alluding back to that podcast. I kind of poured everything into this last book, and you just feel underappreciated, and people read it. You get criticism, and you go, well, why do I bother? I can just go back to my sheep, and just lead a
you're
quiet
not
life.
like or other things that you're enjoying, like the comedy, or like writing a short story, or writing a song, or whatever. Like you've got it, what's the reason kind of doing?
Yeah, it was a bit
actually, I should have brought up earlier, just talking about criticism, when we were talking about being taken seriously. There was a bookseller recently who, and I told Rachael J this.
I actually wrote that down, but I then forgot to ask you about it. Yeah.
She said that she read my last book, not this year's book, and she said, yeah, it was nice. She said nice and easy. I like to alternate deep books with light books, and I just
yeah, I was going to mention that when we were talking at the beginning, because
and it's fine, and it's like I just laughed.
I think that's because of the cover. Like, is it like often
like
the covers,
even
which
just to
I
say
love.
that, like what is a deep book really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
From an industry point of view, I knew what she meant. What she meant was literary fiction.
Yeah.
So, but it was more just, oh yes, of course, that's fine. Rachael J, your 2025 predictions.
Yourself, you mean for me? I was going to say
personal wish list.
The biggest thing I would like to. Well, I've got to finish the women's fiction book that I'm writing by early next year. And
you're quite scheduled, actually, because you have lines.
So I do have things and then I also have to write at least one of my rural rom-coms next year. So that's going to be One Night in the Outback, which is like hopefully going to be more rom-com than rural, if that makes sense, but set in a cattle station up north. And this has been on my bucket list for years, and I have actually, judging the Best Australian Yarns competition, which actually unfortunately is tonight, the awards, but I can't go because I'm in agony mostly. Actually sitting here for an hour is probably really ruined my back again. But I really enjoyed reading the short stories for that, and it's something I've really wanted to play with for years, short story, because I write very long books, and I just think it'd be nice to sort of break that up sometimes in the middle with writing a short story. And just, I looked at some, like I've got lots of ideas for books, sort of. They're like more like seeds of ideas. And I'm like, I'm never going to be able to write all of those. And some of them maybe actually are not enough for a novel, if you know what I mean. So I'm trying to sort of rethink that maybe I would like to try with some short stories. So I'm actually doing a short story course. I think I mentioned that quite a while ago. I only just started, and I have only listened to the first half of the Zoom with Rebecca Mackay, who wrote, oh my gosh, I Have Some Questions for You, The Great Believers, and a few other books. So I'm just, that's something I would really like to do. And I think that's all I'm going to put on my plate, because I've already got two novels to write as well. Well, one and a half.
Because Rachael T has collections of short stories.
Yes, the 50 Shades of Hey.
Yes.
Yeah.
And The Girl and the Ghost.
That's right, the other one. I forgot about that one.
Girl and the Ghost Premier, but yeah.
So I'll be picking your brains too, Rach. You have to give me some ideas
there's
how to
so
write
much
short stories.
Yeah, there's so much fun. And just before, I know we'll get to Sophie with the 2025, but we were going to talk about the benefits of yoga, Rach, and I just think you need to just go and lie on the floor after this.
Yeah, no, I probably will.
And we'll wrap it up pretty quickly because we've A, been talking for a while, and B, Rachael J should not be sitting for as long as she's sitting.
Yeah. No, I really shouldn't have actually. It's because I went to the lovely Tess. I'm just going to stand up now, actually.
We're good.
Yeah.
I told Rachael, I said before you came on, that I've been to Tess Woods, who's a physio today.
Oh.
And she did acupuncture on me and a whole lot of us. So like she's helped me, and I should have not sat for an hour then ruining her.
So my yoga teacher tip for you is do little figures of 8. Even while we're still on this podcast, tiny little figures of 8 just to move your hips around. And then
I'm doing that.
direction. Yeah.
So you tell us about your year. Your 2025.
Well, look, I'm going to state my grand ambition on the country music side of things. My YouTube channel hit 100,000 views. So it took about 3 years to get to 50,000, and then it took about another 3 months or so to get to 100,000.
That's amazing.
Then it's been growing quite a bit. So 1 million views on the YouTube channel is what I'm going for next year. I'm just putting it out there.
And 1 million book sales.
I have a novel that'll be out in August, so I'm working towards that. But I also have quite a few other ideas that are floating around. And as I tend to say, the river continues flowing, and I find more and more that I just feel like I'm getting into it. I'm in the river. I'm flowing with it. Everything's possible. Everything's open. I'm just going to see where it takes me, and
I love that.
And approach it with playfulness, actually. So much as I said earlier, take us seriously, which sounded a bit, like I don't take myself seriously. I do. I take my work seriously. I don't take myself seriously, I think is the thing. Yeah. But it's like, if I approach it with playfulness and open-mindedness and curiosity and fun, I'm a big believer that we should pursue fun.
Same.
As a good.
And I don't believe, like Rachel, you said about, the whole, the point of writing a novel kind of thing, like that's the thing, like the only thing we can't control that's kind of out there, but you have to want to do it. And if like you don't have that drive, you want to do something else, then don't just sit yourself down and force yourself to do it, because we want things to be playful and fun. So I think it's a great idea to have that little bit of time just doing some other things, and I'm sure a novel will come knocking on your door. That's one thing I wish that I had sometimes another outlet for income so that I could, I do feel like one of the things I said to Tess this morning is I think my back to like this week is just be going, stop, you've done, like, you just need to, you're doing too much.
I wasn't going to say it, Rach, but in my experience working with bodies for a very long time now, everything's written on the body, which is actually not to say that everyone should feel that it's their responsibility to prevent these things.
Yeah.
Because I think that can become this form of guilt that women in particular apply to themselves. I'm better. I shouldn't.
I think we should listen sometimes, right? Like today I was like, oh, I can't write because I'm so much in pain. And then in the end, I'm not going to blame myself, like Sophie says, it'll be done when it's done, in the time. But even if it's not, like.
And as Rachael T just said, go and lie down after this podcast. So I'm actually going to be very stern and wrap it up now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Rachael T no doubt has things to do as well. Rachel
Thank you for that such great chat, Rach.
And Rachael T, could we check in with you next year and find out how the stand-up's going?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be able to send send a little link around as well. But I'm just super grateful to you and all of the readers, because just the two ladies that are on this podcast have really given me my second lease of life in the writing career. No, seriously, so brilliant. And I feel like I need to go around to Rachel Johns' place way over in WA and help you teach you to breathe, you've got to breathe into your pain and embrace it and do all of this other stuff. And lower back can mean about
foundations.
But support. It can be feeling unsupported. So it's all these emotional things that's fascinating that we could have another whole podcast on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So well, there you go. We'll put that on ice for next year. I'm going to wish you, well, I'll probably speak to Rachael J again before the end of the year, but Rachael T, if I don't speak to you, Merry Christmas. It's a Merry festive season. Happy Festivus if you celebrate Festivus on the 23rd of December, like Seinfeld thing, and a jolly new year. And
there we go. Wrong way.
So I'm going to officially wind it up and then stop recording, and then we'll properly say goodbye after that. So
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, ladies.
See you later.
If you're watching this video, you will see that Rachael and I are dressed in the same clothes we were in for the penultimate episode of the year. And that's because we're recording the ending for the last episode of the year after we just recorded the second last.
Are you confused? I'm confused.
But if you are listening or watching this, you've just seen us talk to the amazing Rachael Treasure. And we just wanted to recap that and say thank you very much to Rachael for her time. What a delight.
We needed 2 episodes to chat with her this year because she's had so much to say and she's done so many different types of writing things.
Yeah, and she had so many plans. And actually, at the time we were recording, she was about to do her first live stand-up comedy show.
I know, that is so exciting.
She has already done that now.
Yeah.
And I think it's just wildly good.
So brave.
Yeah. So maybe next year we'll have her back because I'm sure there are other things to talk about. But
You can give some tips about comedy writing.
Yeah, that's true. But listeners, viewers, as Paul Hogan would say, viewers, thank you very much for being with us through 2 seasons in 2024. We didn't even plan to get to the end of 1, I think.
We didn't know what we were doing, really. We just thought we'll start talking and see where it goes. And we've had so much fun. We hope you've had fun listening.
We do hope you've had fun listening, and we have plans for next year. If you have any plans for us in terms of what you would like us to cover or authors you think we should talk to, because we do enjoy doing
specific things. Like we really like grabbing an author and talking over a specific topic with them, and that's our kind of point of difference, I guess. And also, we've loved answering some of your questions. So if you we've got already, I think, 1 question from a listener for next season.
We've actually got a couple on the list for next year.
Oh, that's right, we do. Yeah. But we'd love more. So if you want us to ask us anything about reading, writing, editing, the publishing industry, yoga, that's about it.
And it's country music,
dogs. Then leave us a message either on one of our Instagrams or email us at the email in the show notes, and we will look forward to chatting again next year.
Thank you very much for your time and attention. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.